Crunch time in the eFormula series. This is where you put the cards down on the table and sort out end of season form. We're just a handful of races away from the end of the season, and it's a 3-horse race for a championship which has chopped and turned and changed at every single roadblock. Today, we head to a track which has hosted some of the greatest racing that you can find out there. It's held some amazing events, from Formula One events up and down the years to even the likes of, say, the UCI Cycling World Championships last year. This is the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. This is Imola. This is arguably the greatest racetrack, pure, in the world here today. Emilia-Romagna, the place, and well, you are here with us today, of course, with your esports broadcasting network, ESPN, bringing you the action. My name's Jake Sperry, joined alongside by Frank Marchese here in the commentary box. And Frank, we are just heading towards the end of practice, the start of qualifying coming up soon, and this is probably one of the truest tests that a track can give you. It has everything. It has elevation change. It has different profiles of corners. It has overtaking opportunity. And crucially, it has character.
It certainly does. And this is one of the tracks these guys have been to. Well, the only track these guys will be to twice this year. They ran their preseason race here. A great run there. We had the same amount of drivers roughly, produced a great race. And with 2 races to go after tonight's race ends, this is going to be a big test to see where you stack up for the final 2 races of the season.
And those final 2 races of the season are going to be incredibly key to seeing who can put themselves up at the very top of the timing stands and get themselves a championship. Paul Ilbrink right now for the Radicals Online team is top of the timing stand. Well, not the top of the timing stands, but top of the championship at this stage on 104 points, but holds a slender 6-point margin over Lubomir Moric for Positive Sim Racing in second. But driver who is top of the timing stands here, Frank, is top overall in terms of what he needs. He is third in the championship. That's Manuel Domingo. He is currently 0.4 of a second quicker than anybody else as we come towards the end of practice.
Yep, he certainly is. And also looking at the team standings as well this year, a big walkaway. We've seen 2 of the 3 Radicals drivers up at the top, up in the top 3 of the standings. And you can see there clearly in the team standings, waltzing away with that one as well. 190 points to Positive Sim Racing's 127 as we get down to the last 2 races. They could clinch it right here.
They certainly could, and the key is that they've had 2 drivers at every single round of this championship this season. Positive Sim Racing very much have not and have been reliant on the likes of Lubomir Moric for the majority of their points this season. Let's take a look at the privateer standings as well while we are at it, because Ian Keeman is top by 15 points at the moment. He picked up a win, of course, a very crucial win at Long Beach, which has pretty much spearheaded him up to the top of that and really has had that sort of pace where he could have gone and challenged for this title, with Ilbrink, Moric, Domingo and Danny Herkstra currently in 4th position, his nearest rival in the overall championship. But really what we're seeing here is that this is a championship which is fraught and won on consistency. That's why Danny Herkstra is 4th right now.
Yeah, that's all the championships are won and lost on consistency and just showing up on a normal basis. As you had mentioned, the reason why Radicals has been so good here recently is because they've had somebody at every single race this year, both of their drivers at every single race this year. Positive Sim Racing at times have only brought up 1 driver. Tulip Racing, same thing. Tulip Racing UK also same thing. It really, really benefits for you being here, and when you're here, being as consistent as possible.
If you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen, you want to check out some more action brought to you by the Esports Broadcasting Network, you can like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. We've got the opportunities of racing almost every single night of the week in US time zones, so make sure that you check out that for some action. Qualifying, though, is next, and those 15 minutes are open season for all of the drivers. They will have themselves as many opportunities as they need to put the time in, but they have to get that time in during the time period. Let's take also a little look at track conditions as well today here, Frank. It's a good, cool 27 degrees out there on track, which I would call ideal racing conditions today.
I can't do math, the quick conversion in my head just quickly, but yes, that sounds more towards the, I believe, the upper 80s in Fahrenheit. So yeah, this would be a nice little run for these guys. Good grippy track, and not with that heat not being too overpowering, they should be able to keep the car under them.
I've just caught an eye out on in-server, and it was a disconnection for Lubomir Moric, who is second in the championship. He'll have to get in quickly and hope that he finds himself the times that he needs, because he's putting himself now with a little bit of time away from the session, and that gives him less opportunities than maybe some others. But those times are going to be very entertaining. Let's find Manuel Domingo. He's coming on to start his representative flying lap right now, and we'll see how this one plays out for him. It's a 44-1 coming out of the pit, but now he's got to go in charge and make his run here to the Tamburello chicane. 2, 3, and 4 here. It's very tough left, right, left. Anti-cut curbs absolutely everywhere. And the run to the Gilles Villeneuve chicane here, of course, legendary driver, his final great race in 1982.
Yep, certainly is. And this one is deceptively tight. It's rather broad and open going through the first bit of that chicane, and then it really tightens up on the second bit as we head through. I'm blanking on the corner names here. Up to the top of the hill. Now this is going to be a rather blind corner up here. Again, another deceiving corner. It looks a lot wider than it is. The drive downhill, you're going to be hard on the brakes coming up through, essentially through the turning zone here, which could really upset the back end of the car. Up the hill, power down into probably definitely the tightest chicane here on this circuit. Big, heavy braking zone, high curbs all the way around, and then the run downhill to the final two corners to bring you onto the start-finish straight once again.
So through the final two corners, the two Ravazza left-handers, 90 degrees. Both those left-handers are with the front of the car. You can see the My Opinion and therefore Fact Esports moniker on the front of that Radicals Online car, making the charge over towards the line. Domingo hoping that this is a good representative. It's a 129.5. That's absolutely fantastic from him to start things off. We're going to start seeing those times then cropping up on the board to see who goes where. So Unai Lamas then goes into second position, a 130.6, but is just beaten by 6 thousandths by Javier Torres. Mark Ponick now jumping up then into second position. We've got Manuel Hoyer out there on circuit. Now, cast your mind back here, Frank, to Road America for Manuel Hoyer. Had the race under lock and key, threw it in the wall.
Yeah, and that's around, I believe it was the carousel, if I remember correctly, and I.M. Keeman had a very similar incident as well. We know that Manuel Hoyer is quick, just puts it into second position, still 8/10 off of Domingo's time, but we know Hoyer has the speed. He just needs, as we were talking about earlier, the consistency to get a win in.
Absolutely. Emmanuel Hoyer has been a grinder in terms of the way that he has been trying to get results. He has been someone who has consistently gone quicker and quicker and quicker. There's Paul Ilbrink over the line. He goes to third fastest then on a 130.358, just a fraction behind Manuel Hoyer, but we are still missing a couple names to put times in. Moric gets his outlap in on the board then for the moment, and he has time to work with right now. 10 minutes remaining here in this qualifying session, so 1/3 of the way through. Still waiting on times from I.M. Keeman, Danny Herkstra, Matt Quinn, Dave Guild, and then Marcellus Bruning as well. So those five all will be needing to find some times. 15 drivers here today will all be searching for a really strong result at Imola.
Yeah, absolutely. And going to the next track, the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2 weeks, that's one of those legendary tracks that you know so well. So everyone you would expect is going to have a really fast ride there. And also one of the more flowing, more fun circuits to watch a race on at Zandvoort to end this season in a month's time. This is going to be, as I mentioned before, a very, very crucial race because you know the fast guys are going to be really fast at the next two circuits.
And of course, it's those two circuits which make a whole amount of difference to find what they need. Hoyer has jumped up into second position again on a 130.133. He's only 3 thousandths clear, though, of Javier Torres, who puts in a really nice lap time to jump up ahead of Paul Ilbrink, who is on the outside of the second row at the moment. But for how much longer as he charges? He had purple second and third sectors, and a 29.7 is good enough to make it Radicals Online 1-2 at the moment. Bruning puts in a good time, but Moric splits them between 129.6. Moric came to play, and at this stage, he will be quite happy and satisfied. I think the right way to say it is here, Frank. being ahead of Paul Ilbrink, but behind Manuel Domingo.
Yeah, certainly, as Maric won the preseason race here, so we know as we ride on board with him now, he knows how to get around here. He was really quick in that preseason race here, so he is comfortable with this track. He knows what he can do inside of that Formula Renault 3.5. He is going to be a factor here tonight.
And that factor is going to be crucial. Now, also what will be key is keeping an eye on this mid-pack that will be forming, because you've got Hoyer, Torres, Ponick, and Lamas all there. But Dave Guild has gone to second position. What a time there. 1:29.549. He has certainly got something underneath that Tulip racing machine. He is absolutely going for it today. Second position right now. And that is the spanner that everyone was not expecting.
Yeah, no, Guild has shown some speed. If we remember back to Monza a little bit earlier on in the season, he showed some speed there. Unfortunately, like a lot of drivers, couldn't get out of his own way. Only a half a tenth off of Manuel Domingo's time for Guild. That's absolutely phenomenal.
Incredible, but now this really puts things into perspective. The top five are split by just 0.4 of a second, and Maric goes top. 29.413, and what's key is he got a little bit of toe on that long 1 kilometer front stretch then towards Tamburello. That was enough to give him enough of a pull to get exactly what's needed. And now Domingo is on the back foot looking for results. Of course, we've talked about how Maric won the opener here in terms of the pre-season, and will now be looking for more as times go on.
Yeah, but Domingo actually coming through the two Ravazza corners actually goes off in Ravazza 1, trying to get as much as he possibly can out of that car, just could not keep it on circuit. But that is big for Maric. The problem with Maric, though, is you're right. He got that big toe coming off of the beginning of that lap. He got a big holdup, though, going through the first chicane.
So maybe this lap isn't going to be the one for Lubomir Maric, but he does have himself now almost a 1/10 of a second to play with in the back pocket, which he'll be very excited about at the moment, being up at the front of the field. Matt Quinn making progress over towards the line, does not set anything representative, but will have a little bit of time to figure a couple of things out, but still waiting on times of representation from I.M. Keeman and Danny Herkstra. Those two could put a little bit of a change into this play, but I.M. Keeman here is probably the one that everyone's looking at going, well, what's he got? Because on any given Saturday, as we are right now here, Frank, he turns up.
Yeah, he certainly does, and turned up in a big way, as you'd mentioned earlier on, by winning at Long Beach a little bit more than a month ago. So Keeman knows how to win in these cars. He knows what it takes to compete, and on a big, wider track like this, he can show a lot of pace as he crosses the line here. It will jump him up into the 4th position. So a big jump for I.M. Keeman, right up where we were expecting him to be.
Yeah, he bumps now Paul Ilbrink down to 5th position, which is going to be a little bit sore in terms of contention for him, a little bit down the order. He needs to go out there and find some times now to jump through and maintain his championship lead. We saw the first sign of weakness from Paul Ilbrink at Long Beach, where he probably hit every wall around the facility about 3 times over, but now he needs to try and just settle down, find that pace again, and hope that he's put himself in the best possible position, because he knows that these races, there aren't many left, so opportunities to gain points, they are vital, and especially when you have just a slender lead of 6 points, you don't want to be leaving yourself a lot of work to do in the race.
No, you certainly don't, as Matt Quinn jumps up into the 9th position. We saw now Ilbrink going through Ravazza 2 onto the long straightaway, but you're right. When you get such a big points lead like Ilbrink had earlier on, you've essentially earned the right to have a couple of poor performances and still be in that lead. But when it comes down to the end of the season, you want the biggest result possible. And right there, going to the actually extending his pole sitting lap right now, 1:29.286 for Lubomir Maric while we're watching Paul Ilbrink.
Absolutely. I've just caught an eye on I Am Keeman. He's spun coming out of the Tozer hairpin down at the very bottom of the circuit. So he's ran himself into a couple of problems. But we are focused on Paul Ilbrink, who also has the same issue going through Tozer. Such a tough corner that is, because you rise up the hill on the exit, which means it's very easy, Frank, to spin up the rear tyres and spin to the inside.
It certainly is. And we're watching him at the top of the crest now going into Acqua Minerale. Right up at the top of the crest. Again, that's a blind corner for these guys as Ilbrink blows Acqua Minerale completely there. That is a very easy corner to get wrong because, again, the braking zone is essentially in that first right-hand kink, and then you really have to get the brakes on to get through the second one. So a very difficult middle sector here at Imola.
Oh, and that's Domingo and Guild coming together at Tamburello. You saw that Domingo did increase his time. He was behind Dave Guild for a bit of slipstream, and both of them now are probably only going to get one opportunity left to try and improve their lap times out on circuit. So a little bit of an oopsie-daisy between those two drivers, but really not ideal in terms of the circumstance. More improvement from Lubomir Moric, 29.203. He's now got himself almost 0.3 of a second margin at this moment in time as Marcellus Bruning improves to a 31.5. But one driver we still haven't seen go out there, set a lap time, and I probably don't expect that we'll see any lap time at all from, is Danny Herkstra. But we do have 3 or now 2.5 minutes to go here, Frank, and this is where you put your best foot forward.
Yeah, Hoekstra still has some time to get a lap in, as Matt Quinn is the closest one to getting another lap in here. Hoekstra still does have time. Remember, as long as you start your qualifying lap before the 15 minutes is up, you will get that time in. So still a little bit of time for the driver of the 91 to get around.
A little bit of time, but not much is the crucial factor. Mallow and Debeasing are in the pits, or now Bruning is at this moment in time. But now those drivers who are in the pits are probably going to keep themselves exactly where they are. Find yourself some space on circuit. Work out the lap times then, as Quinn has gone up into 6th position with a 129.9. Bumps Manuel Hoyer down into 7th position. Overall, you've got Paul Ilbrink gearing up then for his probably final attempt out there on circuit at this 4.91 kilometer behemoth of a track. I Am Keeman now out on his final flying lap potentially. This is going to be about who can get what they want out of their lap times. This is the showdown that everyone's expecting, Frank, and now every single corner has to be min-maxed to perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Keeman might have timed it just perfectly to where he'll get another lap after this. He set the fastest 4th sector of all here in this qualifying session on that last lap. But I'm noticing, I know you can't necessarily see it right now, but I'm seeing a lot of yellow times, a lot of yellow sector times for all of the drivers that are on screen right now.
And that's going to hurt because that means that they are slower than their provisional bests in their representative sectors. So it's not quite playing out the way that they want to here. They're down to the final 50 seconds going on here. You got Ilbrink out on track. I Am Keeman. Taurus is out there at the moment. Dave Guild will not improve from 3rd position. Moric out there on his final lap. You got Manuel Hoyer out on his flying lap. Torres is coming to the line right now. Will cross with about 20 seconds to go. So he's got one more chance to improve on his lap times. Ilbrink setting a purple second sector is going to be interesting here. And will he have anything to improve? Enough time for I Am Keeman to cross the line and put one more on the board. He will cross the line with about 6 seconds remaining on the clock and go second on a 29.368. What a time by I Am Keeman. He's on the front row. Ilbrink, though, looks quick, and he crosses. He puts a 29.5 down. He can only gain past Guild, and the checkered flag has come out, so he will start no better than the 2nd row of the grid. Here comes Manuel Hoyer looking for lap time here to try and get through a green second sector for him. It's a 29.521. A whole 1,000th of a second says he takes the 2nd row of the grid away from Paul Ilbrink. Leonardo Fabian does not improve on his lap time. Here comes Lubomir Moric to probably extend in this position right now. 29.203. He's done very well. And look at that, 29.096. He has completely found pace. Everybody else on track has got their lap time in the book. And Lubomir Moric here, Frank, has got himself pole position. But the story of the day so far is that it's only third and fifth for the Radicals team.
Yeah, that's a big drop for those guys. And Domingo was very strong here in the preseason race. And for IM Keeman, put down a fantastic lap. I think Ilbrink is on a good lap here. He just posted another personal best, or another session best, pardon me, in the second sector. And for Keeman, that last lap was huge. He went purple in the third sector and then went personal best in the fourth and fifth sector. So a big time for him. Ilbrink, purple in sector 2, personal best in sector 4. He will be the last one to get a lap down. It's a 29.0 is what it looks like. Yep, he was out of time. You're right.
He was out of time, so he got an extra practice lap in. So confirmation of the grid then. Lubomir Moric will be on pole position with IM Keeman alongside him on the front row. Manuel Domingo starts third with Manuel Hoyer in fourth place, and all Manuel second row of the grid. The championship leader, Paul Ilbrink, starts in fifth with Dave Guild in sixth position. Matt Quinn and Mark Ponick make it seventh and eighth places. Javier Torres starts ninth with Unai Lamas rounding out the top 10 on the 130.666, with James Mallow and Leonardo Fabian 11th and 12th, Marcellus Bruning and Atish Debising 13th and 14th, and Danny Hoekstra, not setting a representative lap time in qualifying, will go into 15th position overall on the grid. It's 38 laps of racing, an hour and 5 minutes on the clock here, Frank, and crucially, one pit stop required.
Yeah, certainly, and it's going to be very, very interesting as to when you're going to take that pit stop. Would have to assume it'll be just a little bit beyond halfway, but it's going to be a really, really fun race here today.
It certainly is. Watch out for that run down towards turn number 2 out on circuit, that Tamburello chicane. They've got that small kink to make their way through, and it's very easy to see incident in that early section. So who's going to find what they need? Just waiting on 4 drivers here. There's 2 minutes procedure to grid up, so we are waiting for just a couple of drivers now. One of them is Dave Guild, and now we wait for the Radicals drivers. On goes Manuel Domingo, and we wait for the championship leader. He wants to leave as much time as possible for him to get himself up onto the starting grid, mainly because he knows that he wants the warmest tyres possible, and by waiting to the very, very limit, he is able then to have himself the best opportunity to get that start. It's a standing start as well, which is going to make things very, very complicated, but you've got Lubomir Moric then second in the championship on the front. Onto the grid then comes Paul Ilbrink. The lights procedure will start. Barney the flagman up there in the starters booth. Let's get ourselves ready. 38 laps here for the eFormula series at the San Marino Grand Prix, and it starts right now, and Moric has not got a good start. Keeman is going to challenge him in towards Tamburello. Domingo might want in as well to go 3 wide. Hoyer's under pressure. Thoughts about the inside, did Domingo? He's going to have none of it. Moric has got it covered. Hoyer around the outside then holds on to 4th place, but a nice clean start from every driver as they go on through now on towards the Villeneuve chicane, and crucially IM Keeman immediately looking racy and aggressive.
Yep, Keeman is right there on Lubomir Moric. Domingo also with a decent start. Hoekstra and Debising. I think Debising is off in the back. He was off right there, and also Danny Hoekstra was off as well there.
Yeah, that was just a case of Debising losing the back end and just tagged the rear there of Danny Hoekstra. That's why he's in a little bit of trouble. I think he's saying go through is Atish Debising, because he knows he's definitely not got the pace of anybody else in this field at this moment in time. They crest the rise then up to the Variante Alta for the very first time in this one. Moric from Keeman, Domingo, Hoyer, and then Paul Ilbrink. Guild in 6th, Quinn in 7th, and a gap back to Javier Torres then in 8th place. This is a track which is pretty much predicated here on staying within a range. This is a track where you can very easily lose time if you are outside of margins that you need to.
Yeah, and that's that long straightaways and the very tight chicanes, the Italian way. If the track's too fast, just plop a chicane. You have to get into these chicanes very, very solidly. You also have to get a good run out of these chicanes in order to make the most out of these long straightaways.
The biggest loser then on the opening lap is Mark Ponick. He dropped 5 places off the start. He is down into 13th place as Leonardo Fabian then makes the move on James Mallow into Tamburello and gains a place once more, and now is the biggest mover and shaker in the field with 2 positions gained at this moment in time. Though the front 4 are now needing to set into a rhythm in the early stages of this race. They know that this is a race which is going to be all about staying calm, and a pit window cycle which probably could extend even as far as lap 25 here today, Frank, in terms of their fuel windows.
Yep, it certainly could. And you saw Keeman just flash there really quickly, running a little bit wide at the top of the hill there. You're going to be seeing that all day long. The thing you have to do is you got to make sure you're not going too wide. Otherwise, you catch that grass, the rear tires will spin right around on you.
Very easy to do around this circuit. Just push the limits a bit too hard. This is a track where you need control and measured aggression to make sure that every place can be made out there on track. But every driver knows that they have to make sure that they are playing this one the way that they need to. The front 4 are all there, as it looks like Matt Quinn has made a little bit of a mistake out there on track, so he's dropped a little bit further back from the likes of Dave Guild. You can see that gap now has extended out to what is 1.5 seconds between those drivers. But the front 2 here of Moritz and Keeman are breaking away from Manuel Domingo. The gap is pretty much 1 second between second and third.
Yeah, they have done an absolutely fantastic job. Keeman really hasn't put Moritz under too much pressure. They're just riding in line. But again, these long straightaways, these the draft you can get, and you're putting a lot of aero wake on the car behind you. Keeman right now is just doing a better job than Domingo is of handling that aero wake.
And that aero wake is going to be very, very key for the way that they run. So everyone's going to be looking for positions. And as things stands at the moment, I Am Keeman in second position will jump up to 4th place overall in the championship, with Danny Herkstra all the way down in 14th place, who has gained his places by drivers making mistakes. And there's a mistake from I Am Keeman, too aggressive over the first anti-cut curve there at the Variante Alta. It was reprofiled in 2006 for that change, and ultimately now finds himself back into the thralls of Manuel Domingo in the Radicals Online car.
Yeah, we were riding on board with him as he made that mistake, and it's so easy to do. These anti-cut curbs, as you mentioned, those curbs are really damaging for a GT car around here. With how low these cars are and how light these cars are, you can really throw yourself off. Cost Keeman there half a second.
Half a second that he will now have to work incredibly hard to get back. And will he be looking more in the mirrors or looking firmly in front of him? That's the next question that will need to be asked at the moment, because they know that this is going to be a tough race where they know every mistake will be pounced on by a circuit which has taken legendary names like the legendary Ayrton Senna in 1994. But there is Dave Gill trying to get around here with Paul Ilbrink, and now this is something that we weren't really expecting. Ilbrink is on the defense for 5th place, and Dave Guild wants to try and find a way through. No chance at Piratella there, and the 90-degree left-hander, and ultimately just loses 3/4 of a second through that corner and has to work another way to get through.
Yeah, Guild in the first 2 sectors, you see on the bottom of the screen there, Guild has gained over a half a second on Ilbrink there, just lost it all going through the 3rd sector, but Guild that's pace for Dave Guild right there, so he is, at least at this stage of the race, quicker than your points leader right now.
Certainly is. Now look at I Am Keeman, look at where Manuel Domingo is going through the first Ravazza. A good second Ravazza will open up the door, and you've got Manuel Hoyer just behind, who definitely wants to be a nuisance in this race and try and be as difficult as possible for these 2 drivers in front. Moritz is now officially clear in this one by 1.6 seconds, but Keeman is fully on defense right now. Had everything covered there into Tamburello by a very sizable margin, and there will be also a little look at how drivers set up their vehicle here today. Of course, that 1K long straight means there's a difference between medium, high, and low downforce.
Yeah, there absolutely is. Do you set this track up to be better on the straightaways as Keeman goes a little bit wide there through the Villeneuve chicane? you set this car up to be a little bit flatter, a little bit faster through the straightaways, but that really hampers your cornering speed and cornering ability, especially if you're like Domingo right now, who is tucked right up behind the 75 of Keeman. So we're going to find out right now where Domingo went with his setup. Did he go for more cornering speed, or did he go for more straight line speed?
Looks like it is more cornering speed at this stage of the race. So on the brakes up into the Variante Alta again as they charge on through. And you always want to put the power down through that section as early as you possibly can to make sure you get as much drive towards those Ravazza corners. You go down the hill, small kink right, which leads into the braking zone, which is just after you finish turning. It's a very, very difficult section of track to try and go on through. But crucially, they're not losing too much time this lap to Lubomir Moric. So they've got that in the back pocket. They go on to start the 6th lap then of this 38-lap race, and a 30.8 there from IM Keeman actually closed the gap. But here comes Domingo in the tow, looking for the inside. Door left open then for that move, but round the outside, look how close they battle for it then. Keeman with conviction holds on to the place.
Yeah, and a very good run. You can really hurt somebody's entry there by cutting in. It's obviously not cutting their front wing off, but if you do make that little cut there like you just saw Keeman make, you can really hurt their run through the rest of the chicane, and that's exactly what happened as you saw Domingo have to fall back a little bit. And just behind that, Guild is putting Domingo under, Ilbrink under serious pressure right now.
He is under duress, and he is not quite comfortable here, is Paul Ilbrink. He knows that this race, he needs to get points. But look, he's already 2.3 seconds behind Manuel Hoyer, and that gap is growing with the increased work that Dave Guild is putting in to try and make sure something's happening. Now, Hoyer is immediately on the aggressive there. He was thinking about a move into the Variante Alta against Manuel Domingo, but every time you look, it's a case of, well, someone looks strong, someone doesn't look strong. It's a case of it keeps changing every single time, and this is what you need. You need a level of consistency to go through. Domingo is stuck in a firm case of Schrodinger's overtake right now.
Yeah, he certainly is, and they're keeping up with Lubomir Moric. They're not really working on breaking that gap down as it sits right now. That gap has remained pretty much the same. They're all running identical lap times. They're all in the 131 area. Their best laps are all within 1/10 of each other. So these guys are all 4 of them very similar pace, which means a mistake that we saw Keeman make earlier jumping over those curbs is going to be really devastating because it's going to be hard to catch back up.
Mark Ponick then makes the move on James Mallow, jumps up into 11th position as he recovers through this field. It's taken him a little while to get through Mallow, but he has opened a gap up. Then it's about 3 seconds he needs to find to get to the back of Leonardo Fabian in this race. So they have their eyes very firmly set forward. The key here for Moric is he's got himself a little bit of a gap, but not too much of a gap right now. It's enough for a carrot on a stick, so to say, but he's not got anything else as Dave Guild makes a big error there at the Acqua Minerale section, and that is probably the toughest corner on the circuit, that complex, because you have to do the toughest thing that you will ever find in racing there, Frank. You have to turn and brake at the same time.
It is. You really have to control that brake pedal, try to straighten that wheel out as much as you possibly can before you hit that while you're turning. So, and Guild around again.
Just like that then, and very nearly then colliding with Matt Quinn. So he drops a place as well for his troubles there. That is the first of those Ravazza corners. He gets down on the brakes, goes in through the right, and just never has the car planted on the rear
for
tires.
Second. Domingo's off.
And we just have a little look at that then as we go through as well. So Domingo trying to go around the outside then, effectively runs out of road there, Frank, and is just unable to commit to the corner. I think there was just the slightest bit of contact as he tried to turn in.
There might have been. We'll take a look overhead with these guys if we're not going to get caught in the trees. Here we are. Just above. Just a little bit of contact between the right rear of Keeman and the left front of Domingo. And as I had just mentioned, those guys have such similar pace, it's going to be hard for Domingo to make up that time.
Well, he's now sacrificed third place. Then Manuel Hoyer has control of that. And crucially as well, with those positive sim racing drivers here in positions 1 and 3, they get themselves a chance to keep that team's championship alive for another week, as it will then head towards the next round, of course, at Interlagos, arguably one of the greatest battling circuits that you will find. Guild is around again, this time at the Variante Alta. He's able to keep it in a straight line, but Javier Torres now picks up a place. Dave Guild, this is effectively death by paper cut.
Yep, and just hit the curb and just hit the accelerator a little too much before the car was settled down. You really need to wait. If you're going to ride those curbs, you cannot just pound the gas coming right off of those curbs. You need to wait for the car to settle down just a little bit before you really gas it. And he did not, as Hoyer now moves up into the third position as Keeman has gone around.
Just like that, I am Keeman then. There was a bit of contact through turn number 1, potentially goes on through, and the back steps around. I think that was net code just a little bit there, as he lost all of that grip on the rear end of the car. He drops behind both the Radicals drivers, Domingo and Ilbrink just made a mistake as well, and that allows Domingo back through.
Yeah, and it was a big moment for both Matt Quinn and Javier Torres, as well, as Keeman was getting back onto the racing surface just about, or it might have been actually, was it the Radicals cars?
Yeah, there was the Radicals car, so they had their own moment down at Toza. So there's the spin. You're going to see here Domingo, because back on track goes I Am Keeman there. He has to skirt across in towards the grass, and that allows the likes then, of course, of Paul Ilbrink to go through. And then Ilbrink then made another mistake down at Toza, which allowed Domingo to regain the position that he had just lost. So, right, let's reset. Make sure we know where everyone is. It's Lubomir Moric from Manuel Hoyer. It is 1-2 right now for Positive Sim Racing. Then it's Domingo and Ilbrink, 3rd and 4th. I Am Keeman is 5th. Matt Quinn is in 6th. And then it is in 7th, Javier Torres right now. There have been more changes of position. Leonardo Fabian now has fallen behind Mark Ponick. And on the back is now going to be Danny Herkstra, because he has gone through on Marcellus Bruning. So those positions all changing. And now Danny Herkstra starting to get into a rhythm right now here, Frank, as he wants to try and gain some places and crucially close that gap to the number 75.
Yeah, I think Bruning had an off at that last chicane up there. I believe it's the Variante Alta is where he had an off, so that put Bruning back, and now Hoekstra going around James Malo into the first chicane. So that's a slow movement, but movement forward for Hoekstra after the last place start, and then the spin at the start with Adish Debizing.
Yep, he's now up into 12th place, so he is up from his starting position 3 places so far in this race. So a very good and accomplished move, which has got things done. And now everyone needs to try and work out where they are after all of those incidents then. So Lubomir Moric clear by 2.6 seconds at the front. But crucially, Manuel Domingo has now dropped to 7.5 seconds behind your race leader out on track, and will have the championship leader right behind him. So now there becomes a different game in town. Both of these drivers losing points right now to Lubomir Moric. But if you were a team strategist right now in terms of this race, Frank, surely you would think towards the end of the race, as that's a mistake for Paul Ilbrink, that Ilbrink needs the points to defend and give Radicals the advantage now compared to later. But we know they're both fighters.
Now, if looking at Formula One strategy-wise, there's sort of a conflict here, because typically the lead car is the one that gets priority on the pit stop. The faster car gets priority on the pit stop, but also the points leader gets priority on the pit stop. And right now, Domingo has 2 of those 3. He has the higher position, and he has the faster car, as Ilbrink is really getting put under a lot of pressure here from I Am Keeman. So who do you go with? Do you go with your best chance to get the best position, or do you go with the points leader? Only 6-point gap, you might still go with that points leader.
Oh, mistake from Keeman then, trying to put the power down, and, well, opportunity is missed by I Am Keeman at that point, and he is talking Dutch with his Dutch compatriot in front, because he's trying to work out a couple of things to make things happen. We also need to note that Javier Torres has had a spin last lap at the Variante Alta that has dropped him back down into 10th position. This has promoted Mark Ponick then up into 9th and now into 8th position, as he is also around Unai Lamas in the number 77 Formula Renault 3.5. So that means now that Mark Ponick is the one who is really charging, and he is back to where he started after he dropped 5 places on the opening lap.
Yep, and Panik has clear racetrack, about 5.5 seconds worth of clear racetrack in front of him does Mark Panik, so he has some time to get himself into a rhythm now. He's got a big group of cars behind him as Keeman's in the pits.
He certainly is on lap 11 out of 38. This is a very early time to make a strategy decision to come down into the pits. So this is probably the earliest we expect a one-stop strategy to work on. And I wonder here if I.M. Keeman just doesn't have something right in the setup.
It could be also bouncing off some of these curbs. He might have jiggled something around, maybe made something a little bit weaker than it was, and he just drives right through.
Yeah, and I would assume then you've also got to keep an eye out on the penalty limit. Remember here, we've got a 10 incident point penalty limit for a drive-through penalty, and then at 20 it's disqualification. If he's just gone through 10 incident points in 11 laps, he's in trouble.
Yeah, that's if that is the case, which that would be the only reason why he would come in and drive through the pits so early. Yeah, that's big, and he's put on some aggressive moves and has had a fast car as he gets around. I believe that is Mark Brunning right now. I mean, that's going to hurt him later on in this race.
It certainly is. Brunning trying to attack back up at Piratella, but you're going to have none of it here with that sort of battling. But we have got battles for position right now. Danny Herkstra has found the back of Leonardo Fabian. This is for the top 10 at this moment in time, and Fabian knows that this is for the top 10. Lamas has also lost the place to Javier Torres out there on track, and they also have to be careful about fading light in this sort of race as well here, Frank, because in sim time, it's 20 to 8 at the moment in the evening. This is going to get tougher and tougher as this race goes on to pick out your braking points.
Yeah, and vision is something you absolutely want here at a track like this, and this is the back of that group. We were talking about Mark Panik picking up the positions and then starting to move forward as we ride on board with Danny Hoekstra right now. This is the very back of that group. This is a nice little pack here of cars that we got all within about 2 seconds of each other.
In about 2 seconds, we have all 15 drivers still circulating out on track. Atish Debising is the driver down at the back of the pack in 15th position at this moment. Through the Natoza hairpin, and there goes Leonardo Fabian. One mistake, just like that, trying to put the power down on exit, but the car says no.
Yep, that's, you talked about that earlier. It's that simple when it comes to trying to put the power down, going through the Tosa hairpin. It's so easy to do exactly what he just did, and it cost him a bunch of time.
The fastest driver on track at the moment is the driver in 3rd position. That is Manuel Domingo here. His last lap, a 1:30.496, was half a second quicker than Lubomir Moric, and I think he wants to try and close that again. 30.5 responds then by Moric, and that means that the gap remains at around 4 seconds between Domingo and Hoyer. Hoyer is doing what he needs to do here today. He is the rear guard for his teammate who is fighting for the championship.
And right now, if my math is correct, I think this would put Moric in the points lead if he were able to continue this run that he has right now as Javier Torres passes Mark Panik a little bit further in the back of the field. But that 130.4 that you had mentioned from Manuel Domingo was the fastest lap of the race. The next lap, Moric responds with a lap that was half a tenth slower than the fastest lap of the race as well.
Tells you all you need to know, that they are trying to find pace, and they're only going to get quicker here, Frank, as this race goes on, because they know they're burning those fuel load levels, and they are really attacking on tyres that are going to get older and older as this race goes on. But when they get to the right level that they need, maybe a fresh set of tyres and the ability to get out and racing again gives them the chance. Ilbrink, he's very nearly lost it 2 ways then. Coming out to the Variante Alta. He got out on that green AstroTurf, lost the back end, still had no grip when he came back on track.
It's not quite as much an ice skating rink as the grass is around here. But yes, that green AstroTurf does not hold a lot of grip, believe it or not. You can very easily slip and slide through that. We saw that a lot in the preseason race here. Ilbrink doing it again.
Yep, and he's done just enough to hold himself then in position. He's got himself about 6 seconds back to Matt Quinn, who is in the 5th place right now and just driving in his own world at this stage. Nobody in front, nobody behind, and not much to really focus and think about. Here comes Mark Ponick again, though, looking to the outside, defended all the way by Javier Torres then through Tamburello. And really what you're seeing right now is two drivers with even pace taking advantage of the tow here today.
Yep, absolutely. And also taking advantage as Guild had an off that put them behind both of these guys. So this is a battle for the 6th position at the moment. And just a little bit quicker, it looks like, Mark Ponick is than Javier Torres has been. Torres did put in a very good time that last time around, but Ponick looking very similar in pace. Wrong graph there. There we go. Ponick looking very similar in pace right now with Torres.
Certainly does. And we also have to point out that Leonardo Fabian has just lost the place to IM Keeman. So Keeman up into 12th place with that overtake as he tries to recover through the field and gain those places he lost with the drive-through penalty he had after just 11 laps for hitting the iRacing instant point limit, which has been set by the league at 10 for a drive-through penalty, which even in most races, that is an incredibly harsh penalty limit to have 10 for a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, and a track like this to where it is so easy to run off track and the off-track limits aren't all that friendly here. Now, they're not as bad as, say, where the series was 2 weeks ago at Spa-Francorchamps, but it is a very strict track limit here. And also, I think the series can, once you hit that incident limit as Hoekstra hits pit lane, you can get, say, for every 2 beyond that, another drive-through penalty, as we see Keeman go right through James Malo here going into Tamburello.
Yep, so Hoekstra in the pits then takes his stop. There is the pass through Tamburello. James Malo falls behind IM Keeman. And on top of that, everybody is just starting to reach those limits. Look at Manuel Hoyer right now, number 74. He's been systematically closing the gap here down to his teammate. It's now down to 1.3 seconds the last time they crossed the line. I think Hoyer's trying to prove a message that he does have pace in comparison to Lubomir Moric. How much pace is the question? Well, you need only look at the fact that he has the fastest lap of the day.
He actually does not. As the last three laps, Moric did the last lap, the top 3 did a 1:30.9. Now Moric responds with a 5. Then it was a 30.38. Domingo did a 2.8. And right now, Domingo has the fastest lap of the race and the fastest lap of the top 3 again. Ilbrink slightly quicker than his teammate that last time around.
And Ilbrink has to, because he's got 4 seconds to try and chase down, which is always going to be a tall order right now on lap 17 of 38. 22 laps remaining then here at the San Marino Grand Prix. And of course, this track not actually in San Marino, it's in Emilia-Romagna in Italy, but of course had the San Marino tag added on to it, of course, in the 80s, 90s, and of course the noughties as well when they went on through. Of course, the San Marino tag now belongs to Mazzano. But at this stage, I'm sure these drivers are just thinking about now when their pit stop window opens, because we're coming up towards that halfway stage on lap 19 of this race, and we've got the likes of Hoekstra, who's pitted incredibly early, but these drivers will be just counting down laps, looking at fuel gauges, looking at tyre life, and going, okay, when's the right time to make the stop for me, a driver who wants to try and go out there and battle?
Yeah, certainly, and I think it's going to be about another 4 or 5 laps here before we see that pit window open, so maybe lap 22 around that point. As I've seen here, we've been following Ilbrink this entire lap. I think he just got himself 3 off tracks there. He went wide at the back end of Tamburello. Yep, Torres went around.
And once more, it is Torres at the Variante Alta, trying to put power down on the exit. Nothing there in the rear tyres, and he goes for a spin in the grass. He now falls back towards IM Keeman as he drops 3 positions. So Ilbrink is pushing every single limit he possibly can right now to try and push himself forward. And the leaders now have a little bit of lap traffic in the form of Atish Debising. So they get through, that's okay. Dave Guild all of a sudden is fighting for 6th place.
Yep, Guild is trying to recover from a couple of self-inflicted wounds here. I think, as you had said before, death by paper cut, as he goes up to the back end of Mark Ponick here, who currently occupies the 6th position. He has dropped off the back of Matt Quinn quite significantly, has Ponick.
10 seconds that he's lost to Matt Quinn in the number 22 car. So for the 34, he's got a lot to do if he wants to try and push himself forward, gain those places that he needs. And now look at the run here that Guild's got. Thinking of the inside then there at Aqua Minerale. It's such a tough place to go too wide at, so he'll decide I'll wait for a better place, a more clear-cut opportunity here in this one. Maybe at the Variante Alta late on the brakes. He's not going to have enough of a run to make that a reality, but there is still a lot of time to go out there, make places, gain positions, and now you start wondering here with those times, how aggressive do you need to be to close down exactly what is needed? No chance again into the next left-hand bend there. The two Ravazza 90-degree left-handers. I tell you what, with a corner like that at Ravazza, I definitely would like one of these fantastic houses that are behind that section. As here comes the move.
Yep, here he comes. You're riding on board with Guild right now. All that draft helping him getting down into Tamburello. Is he going to be able to make the move stick as we take a look at the left rear corner of the car? Now we move over to the right rear. There we go. We're all good. Guild back up into 6th.
And it's almost like tightrope walking through Tamburello because of the anti-cut curbs. You cannot be aggressive in these sorts of vehicles, and they know that they have to leave a lot of room as they go through. Ilbrink has nearly found the back of Atish de Beast, and he absolutely blitzed on through on the inside with a huge differential there in speed, which would have caught maybe a lesser driver out with that sort of level. Into the pits comes Leonardo Fabian. He's in then for his stop as he looks to try and get through. Taurus under pressure, of course, as well from I.M. Keeman.
Boy, Ilbrink almost lost it completely going over the Variante Alta. Hit that first curb, not the greatest. That forced him to jump essentially over the second curb and almost flew into that outside wall.
It was very much kart drifting through that corner. No ifs, buts, or ands about it. He did very well to keep himself out of trouble then on that lap. But a 1:30.246, another fastest lap of the race then for one Mr. Manuel Domingo as he tries to chase down Manuel Hoyer and Lubomir Moric at the front of this field. He's got 5.2 seconds to find at the moment, and they know that this race is going longer and longer here as they try and battle for it then. Taurus under pressure. Here comes I.M. Keeman then, looking to jump up into what is going to be now, that is 9th position, and he makes the pass then on the inside, and on the brakes he goes and comfortably gains that one through. So I.M. Keeman back on the charge again. 9th place he finds himself in on the road.
Yep, and remember, he came out of the pits from that drive-through penalty down in 14th position. So the fact that he's up to 9th right now is incredibly impressive for what he's done. But going back up to the top 3, Domingo, as you mentioned, put in a 30.24 as the fastest lap of the race. Lubomir Moric was 100th of a second off of him. Those two matching pace right now.
I'll tell you what, I do worry for these drivers towards the end of the race. Look how dark it's got over the course of half an hour. I'm just keeping a look every time they go past the start-finish line. I just see the lights on the safety car get brighter and brighter.
Yeah, this was definitely an interesting start time for this race. It's going to be quite enjoyable, though. I will say it'll be enjoyable for us, maybe not for them, as right now, Moric, getting stuck behind Maz, who's trying to get out of his way. And unfortunately, they both moved into the same part of track at the same time. Moric through, though, but that's going to cost him time. And now really holding up Manuel Hoyer as well.
Hoyer is livid.
Oh, there they go!
They've come together. Leonardo Fabian and Manuel Hoyer come together. Hoyer is livid right now over the radio. He is incensed because look how much time that's cost him right now. It's now brought him right back into Manuel Domingo.
It cost Moric about a second. We'll see at the lap time here, but Hoyer caught right up to the back of Maz at the end of the Villeneuve chicane and just drove right into him. And already, look again, another little jink move coming out of Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, Leonardo Fabian, I think, is well out of line to take matters like that into his own hands, and I'm sure that the stewarding team will have a big word with him after this one. Two very passionate drivers who are in two very different parts of their race at the moment, and Manuel Hoyer is lucky he still has one going on. Out of the pits comes Javier Torres, and now what's key is who's come out where in the stops. Unai Lamas, I do believe, has made his first stop as well. He's come out just ahead of Danny Hoekstra. Torres is behind.
Yep, Lamas, Hoekstra, Torres, and Maz have all made pit stops. Nobody else has made a pit stop just yet. And you saw there on that replay that we just showed on board with Hoyer, Maz essentially parked it on the back end of on the exit, of Villeneuve chicane, and then just essentially just drove right into the left rear corner as Ponick hits pit road.
Yep, so Mark Ponick then decides it's his time to come in, make a stop, and get himself out and going again. Lap 21 finishing for him, and he will look to try and get in. James Mallow will follow him down into the lane. So they've got their stops that they're going to be thinking about at the moment, but all of these drivers are probably looking around at themselves going, well, how late are we going to be leaving things at this stage for the way that this race is going? So out comes Ponick. He's going to be behind Marcellus Bruning. No surprise, he hasn't come in and made his stop yet. Hoekstra and Lamas, of course, are down at all the way back at Ravazza 2. So Ponick retains the position he had.
Yep, you can see here on the track map where some of these guys are. That 12 is Malo. The 66 right now is the man you're looking for. He is the race leader coming up to that start-finish line right now at the bottom of this circuit. Great to see where some of these guys are coming out, as I believe Hoekstra has had an issue.
Yep, Danny Hoekstra then in a bit of trouble, and that's all the way at Tamburello, I do believe. Sorry, no, yes, it is Tamburello. All on his own, anti-cut curb through the first corner, and the back end just steps out at him through the corner. Remember, this track is getting colder and colder as the night draws in, and Danny Hoekstra, again, another victim of that, finding out as he will soon be lap traffic for Lubomir Moric.
Yeah, and you had mentioned it a second ago. It is getting excessively dark down there at the bottom end of this circuit. Up here, it's not that bad as Moric goes around to put him a lap down now. It is getting excessively dark here. We still have 16 laps to go.
Manuel Domingo is lucky he still has a car as Mallow turns around, hits the wall in the same place that George Russell did in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. That was the case of Mallow finding that Manuel Domingo needed to go through and said, I'm going through whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that was a rash dive from the 9 of Domingo. And you can see there's Malo essentially finishing the car off. But yeah, that was a big move from Domingo. It's getting really difficult to see out there. Down here at this end of the track and up at the top of the hill, it's not that bad. But once we get down into Tamburello, where all the trees are covering, as here comes Domingo into pit lane, it's getting really, really difficult to see.
They've still got 15 laps to try and get themselves through. So it might be a case of put on the in-game line potentially. It might be a case of rely on your relative here to work out where everyone is behind you. But Manuel Domingo then is coming in looking to make his stop and get himself back out into racing again. And he is taking that opportunity to dive in first because he knows he can't afford to be held up too much longer. In terms of where he's going to come out, it's a very long pit lane here as well. So you're going to see here drivers try and fly through. The likes of Keeman and DeBeasing will make their way through. Of course, Keeman needs to make his representative stop again, but Domingo has a little bit of room to play with right now. One lap, which I think he'll be quite happy to be finding with right now.
Yeah, certainly he's got 3 seconds ahead, and he's got quite a nice gap behind him as well. That was a perfect time for that pit stop as DeBeasing had an off right in front of him. Now I would have to assume that the leaders here are going to cover off. Now we talked earlier about pit strategy and who would usually have priority in one of these situations. Unlike Formula One, these guys do have their own individual pit boxes here, so we could
stop. Paul Ilbrink will follow then at the end of lap 24 of this race to try and make things all work out the way that they hope that it will in this one. You've got Quinn and Guild here working out their strategies. In comes Matt Quinn making his stop. Dave Guild will also follow in. He knows that he has reached the limit of where they can go in terms of the stints. Everybody in, everybody out, and that is the key.
Yep, we just saw it. We were riding on board. We sat on board on that pit stop there with Manuel Hoyer. Hoyer actually stopped short in the box, had to move up. So that's going to cost him a little bit of time. As we go back to the track map, you're going to look for number 9 as I think Domingo's coming back in.
That would be a penalty then for Manuel Domingo. You'd have to think.
Oh, he wrecked. No, he spun. He went off.
Just like that. So we'll take a look at that then. Manuel Domingo in all sorts of trouble with the front nose. Is that the moment that his championship title challenge goes away? On the power, up the hill from Acque Minerale, the back steps out and he noses it straight into the wall. No way that he could possibly stop that one, but that is effectively his race over and done with.
Yeah, it is, and that was the entire nose cone. Usually when we see incidents like that, it could sometimes just break the front wing. But no, that was the entire nose cone off of that number 9 for Domingo. We threw the track map up just to see where he was going to come out in relation to Hoyer after Hoyer made that mistake on pit road. And it turns out he was way behind.
Well, good luck trying to see where everyone is out there on screen, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you that Lubomir Moric does have the race lead. It is Hoyer in second and Paul Ilbrink right now in third place. Matt Quinn is fourth with Dave Guild then in 5th position, as 6th place is currently being held by I.M. Keeman there. With Manuel Domingo now pretty much out of the race, Ponic will move up, as will Unai Lamas. Everyone is trying to gain those places as much as they possibly can. Worth noting as well, Marcellus Bruning, I do believe, hasn't yet come down in to make his stop.
He has not in that number 61, so he is still riding around here. My goodness, it is dark out here. These cars do not have headlights, so you're right. There are a couple things that these guys can do on the pit stop, namely put on that driving line to help see when you really can't otherwise, as now here comes Bruning in.
Yeah, Bruning then into the pits in the number 61 machine as he looks to make his stop, get himself out and going again. Those final 14, 13 laps, these are going to be testing ones as that's Atish Debising in trouble then. Down at the Variante Alta then, he goes around, he caught the anti-cut curb on the inside. In fact, he lost it way before that. Gets over and he finds himself pretty much where they all tow the cars to there on the right-hand side.
Yeah, Debising has had an absolute mare of an evening in that number 12, currently sitting in the 15th and last position right now, or pardon me, the 14th position. James Malo, I think, has called it a day in that number 12, and Debising now going to come into pit road.
Yep, no surprises there. He has to come in. I'm pretty sure he's in a world of trouble. But Lubomir Moric then, it's pretty much a case of who is going to be the best night rider in this sort of race. As Moric currently holds himself with just about enough of what he needs to keep himself nice and calm. 31.3 as he crosses through. 2.2 seconds over his teammate Manuel Hoyer in second. And a further 12 seconds back is Paul Ilbrink in third position. He's not racing for second place anymore. He's racing to consolidate, and that is going to be something that does hurt him in terms of his pride, but he knows there's nothing more he can do.
No, there really isn't, unfortunately, for Ilbrink and his teammate. I think Domingo is no longer sticking around. I think he is done after that nose-on collision at Acque Minerale. He is no longer in pit road. I'm not seeing him any motion from him on track, so we might only have 13 drivers now circulating this field with Domingo and Malo now done.
Yep, Domingo is very much done. He is out of server at this stage. I.M. Keeman, though, has recovered his way back up into 7th position and has Mark Ponic in front of him for that 6th place. And this is going to be a key battle here because now they're going to have to try and work out where each other is in the dark. And you also have to remember, Mark Ponic does not have the brightest livery in the world.
No, he does not. He does have some yellow on there, but that would be more gold, and it is not one of those highlighter golds either. So I don't understand what it is. Driving a black car at night, I don't understand why that would be a smart thing to do.
I don't understand either, but look at I Am Keeman here, tucked right up underneath. He's looking for the run then on the exit here, and Ponic is very wisely saying, I am moving over to this side, I'm going to let you through, and we are going to try and make sure that we get ourselves through. At this stage, surely some common sense is going to have to prevail here. At this stage, they're going to be racing in pitch black darkness, and they're going to have absolutely no idea where they are on track.
No, absolutely not. You really need, if this is one of those times where it is kind of nice that these guys are spread out a little bit, because if you try racing in how dark it is on track right now, I mean, we can just barely, the brightest part of this circuit is the lights that we just saw there. I mean, this is one of those times where if a driver is really quicker than you, you really have to let them go.
It's also worth noting as well that they are over 75% race distance. So if you did call the race right now, at this moment in time, this probably would count for full championship points, where otherwise it would count probably for half championship points for a race stoppage a little bit earlier than...
Keeman's around. At the back end of Villeneuve, he went around, he caught the curb and just too much power and spun it, nosed it into the fence, still has his nose. A little bit of a bend of the front wing, but other than that, it looks okay.
It's easy to do, and I Am Keeman then, he just missed the apex on the inside there at Villeneuve, gets himself up on the anti-cut curves there, he gets stuff on the AstroTurf on the outside, and when you're up there and you're up against the plank that's underneath that vehicle, that bit of wood that is there for scrutineering purposes, it's very easy to go sliding through that section. He runs himself into trouble, and remember, I Am Keeman has got very, very little champion, or incident points, I should say, to try and get himself through. This is survival now for every single driver in this field. They know they've just got to keep that car on the island, and Lubomir Moric has himself about 9 laps to make sure he gets it home.
It certainly is, and it looked from that onboard that we had of Keeman that he has not towed out the car, but we're going to ride on board here with Lubomir Moric. Look at how dark it is around this circuit. You cannot see a single apex through here until you're already there. This is one where if you came into pit road and you did not put your driving line on, or you don't have it set up to a hotkey, you are really going to be hurting right now, because you can't see a thing up at the top end of this racetrack.
You certainly can't, and that's going to be the big worry that I'm sure all these drivers have at this stage. We're going to say that I believe they're going to finish on lap 30. I'm just hearing word from the team that they will finish the race on lap 30 of this race, because it is so dark. They are going to bring that finishing time forward, so we are down to just 2 laps to go, and the last lap will now start here, Frank, for Lubomir Moric.
Yeah, very smart decision. It is way too dark to be a competitive race around here, so a very good call by the stewards to end the race at the end of this lap here.
Yeah, and that one is coming through. So, one final lap then for Lubomir Moric. I just saw Dave Guild jump over the anti-cut, or through the very anti-alta chicane. Javier Torres and I Am Keeman still close together, but this will be the final lap then of this race. A little bit earlier than we expected, but Lubomir Moric is racing in pitch black, and this is a case of just trying to bring it home. You've got 4.91 kilometers, and he's already down at the Toza hairpin, making sure he is consolidating his place. His teammate behind has about 4 seconds to play with here, compared to Paul Ilbrink, who is just pottering around right now, making sure that he can finish this race. But Moric knows that this one was all about the mistakes of those drivers behind. Manuel Domingo finding himself in the wall, pretty much writing himself out of the championship
off, I think.
picture.
Oh, no, he's good.
We do have a driver off then in the background as well, then, which is not going to be ideal either. Keeman is through then on Torres as he gets on through. But for Lubomir Moric, he's got himself a couple corners to go. He's through the Variante Alta. He's got 2 left-handers at Ravazza to make sure that he is home and he is okay. The lights are off, but they are all shining tonight as they get themselves through. Moric has driven absolutely superbly. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a case of lights out for this championship. Lubomir Moric will come to the line and win here at Imola.
A fantastic run by Lubomir Moric. I'm surprised it went down towards the end of that race. Look at the lights bounce off of that car right there. I'm surprised he was even attempting to hit apexes there. I would have been right dead in the middle of the track that entire last lap.
Yeah, and that means that March wins by 5.7 then over one Manuel Hoyer. Ilbrink then in third. Matt Quinn will come to the line. It will be fourth place for him overall, with Dave Guild coming home in fifth, and it will be sixth position then for Mark Ponick as he will make his progress to the line. Keeman will survive to tell the tale in seventh position as he gets himself ahead of Javier Torres then for eighth. It will then be Unai Lamas, Danny Herkstra, and then a long wait for Leonardo Fabian, who will be the last driver over the line, but I'm sure that he'll be facing a couple of sanctions come the end of the race. So with that all in mind, Lubomir Moric has every reason to be excited with the way that he is driven. He is race winner overall and has every reason to be the happiest man out there in the entirety of the field here, Frank.
He certainly does. He drove an absolutely flawless race, pole to win, sweeps Imola this year. Again, as I mentioned before, won the preseason race here, and now wins in dominating fashion here in, I believe it's round 8 of this season.
Certainly does, and he has done everything that he has possibly needed to make sure he's got that result, as everyone has got themselves over the line and finished here this race all over, as they have made sure to do right now. And I'm sure all these drivers are incredibly happy. I'm sure Lubomir Moric here hasn't actually got the notice here that the race is over. A couple drivers, I'm pretty sure, haven't got that notice, so they will bring those vehicles over to a stop and end the race outright. So that's their race all over and done with. But crucially, Frank, this is a race that probably needed an extra half an hour earlier start.
Yeah, probably. And Moric and Hoyer are both still plugging away here. The race is over, yes?
Yep, it's
okay,
absolutely over.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
It is over. Absolutely over. So
okay.
Moric wins. It's Hoyer in second and Ilbrink third. That is the race. There is no if, there is no buts, and there is no ands about it. But Frank, you know, we are in this position where we see these drivers all looking to try and pick up as many results as they can. This is really one where I'm sure that they'll look at this and go, well, what's next in terms of the future? And I'm sure these drivers will be looking at this going, well, what's next for us? What's next is Interlagos in 2 weeks' time.
Yep, it certainly is. That is going to be an incredibly fun race at Interlagos. It's one of the more notable and one of the more historic racetracks on the Formula One calendar. And to see a race, hopefully see a race at Interlagos next week is going to be 2 weeks from now is going to be incredibly entertaining.
User joined your channel.
Yeah, and well, some brilliant results that we have seen. We are going to bring in a couple drivers in. Firstly, we're going to bring in Danny Herkstra, who is part of the team, I do believe, who has made this decision. Danny, first and foremost, the decision to end this race early, a necessary decision given the fact that the start time was about 30 minutes, a little bit too late.
Yeah, we didn't really figure that this would happen, that it would become this dark, because we kind of used the official race timings, but yeah, obviously we run a little longer, so yeah, it got dark a little bit quicker than we hoped for. So I mean, there were drivers, you know, quitting like Hoyer because they just couldn't see it anymore, and we thought it was fair to just take the standings from lap 30 and end it.
And just for confirmation for all the viewers who are watching right now, as Moric and Hoyer continue to drive around, have a little bit of fun in the dark, it is confirmed that it's full championship points available then for the result that they pick up.
Yes, we do will award the full points, since we almost did a full race, just 8 laps shy of it. So we're going to use full points, yeah.
And of course, in terms of your race as well here, Danny, you got yourself up quite a few places there come the end of the race, but one which you didn't manage to get a qualifying lap in for.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the timings. I mean, the lap times were like 1/10 off each other, and I think in the practice there were like 3, 4, 5 guys with exactly the same time. So I figured that it would be way too close to be in that battle, and I just wanted to try to pull the same stunt again from behind.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us and giving us some clarity on this situation. Danny Herkstra, they're part of the stewarding team, making sure that everything has all worked out. But more importantly, here, Frank, I believe that we have the top three waiting, of course, in for their opportunity to chat.
Yep, that we absolutely do. And here in just a moment, we are going to bring up the race winner here, Lubomir Maric. And I'll take this one since you started with Danny. Lubomir, an absolutely dominant performance here tonight from the start of the race. What was your key to taking now both races at Imola this year?
Hello, good evening. Seems that this track kind of suits me. The rhythm is very unique. The Imola is basically the only track with this characteristic. So, well, you need to learn how to fly with a car through the curbs. That's the key.
What was it like? It got really, really dark here later on in the race. We went on board with you through the second and third sectors a little bit earlier on, just before they called the race, and it was absolutely pitch black, could not see a thing. How difficult was that come the end of the race here, just trying to find your mark, let alone hit it?
Yeah, I'm driving in virtual reality, and even with AMOLED display, you basically can't see even the edge of the track. So I dropped like 2 seconds a lap, and I was just guessing where I am and just avoiding the curbs. So it was really scary. I think it was my first night race in a Formula.
I think it would have been everybody's first night race in a Formula car. In 2 weeks' time, we head to one of the more legendary Formula One tracks on the circuit, and that would be Interlagos for the Brazilian Grand Prix. Second to last race of the year, you really took a big chunk out of the points lead of Ilbrink last week with the win. Here again this week, you might have the points lead if my math is correct coming out of tonight. What are your thoughts going into the penultimate round of the season?
Yeah, I believe those two last races, or even the next one, will give us a hint if who will be the champion or who might be the champion. There are three strong drivers: Manuel Domingo, Paul Brink, and me, basically fighting for every single point. So I'm really happy that I got these points this evening.
And you certainly did a fantastic job with it. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go here tonight?
Definitely Positive Sim Racing Team, my teammate Manuel Hoyer, and our sponsors Joel Real Timing, Sim Racing Cockpit, Z1 Dashboard, Modem, and Studio 3D. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
You too. You're back-to-back race winners now, and I think your new points leader, Lubomir Maric. Congratulations.
Well, that is Lubomir Maric. Hopefully, we can bring in Manuel Hoyer, his teammate, in, who finished in second position here today, and he joins us right now here in the commentary box. Manuel, it's been a long time, buddy, since you and I have had a conversation, but let's talk about that race. Your role today was to play rear gunner for your teammate Lubomir, who's fighting for the championship, and you had that ability to go out there, race your race, and second place, I'm sure you'll be very happy with.
Hello, Jake. Nice to hear you after a long time. Yeah, I'm very happy with the result today. I think it was the best we were able to do. Pace were maybe a bit better than I thought, but I'm happy that Lubomir won, and it's good for him to be able to fight Paul in the championship. So second place, yes. It's very good for me today.
Let's talk about what happened earlier on in the race between yourself and Leonardo Fabian, because it seemed that you got a little bit held up, he got a little bit angry, and two very passionate drivers decided they wanted to come to blows.
Yeah, it was a strange situation. He let Lubomir by, and I thought, okay, maybe he would be able or a kind to let me through also, but he didn't, and then he stopped out of the chicane. I was just lucky that I didn't hit him, And I said in the chat, please go out of the way, because I was a bit angry in this situation. And in the next left turn, he hit me. I cannot say more to that. I was a bit pissed off, but yeah, I cannot explain why he did it. So yeah.
Of course, tempers, of course, being raised. Of course, 2 weeks' time into Lagos. How do you feel about that circuit, Manuel?
I'm looking forward with a good feeling for it. I like this track, and I hope I'm able to fight with Radical again over the whole race, like today. It was a bit unlucky for Manuel Domingo as well. It would be more fun to fight him on track than to pass him after an incident with another driver. But maybe we will have next time.
Well, next time, indeed, we will definitely see if it's maybe one step better. Manuel, before we let you go, shout out sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank.
I want to thank all the sponsors we have, GRT and all the other ones. I actually don't know the name. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, thank you.
Well, it's not me you need to apologise to. It's Javier, who's the team boss. Manuel Hoyer coming home with second position overall. Frank has found the former championship leader at this point, Paul
User was
Ilbrink.
moved out of your channel.
Yes, I
User was
have,
moved
as a
to your
matter of
channel.
fact. Paul Ilbrink, our third place finisher here tonight. Paul, one of the more difficult races for you here tonight. Probably not as bad as Long Beach was, but a difficult, different kind of race for you. Started fifth and we're never really in it.
Yeah, I didn't bring my night vision goggles either, so not my best evening. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't practice a whole lot, and yeah, was a little bit off the pace, so you try to make up by pushing a bit harder, and this is not a very forgiving track for that, so I got caught myself out a couple times, so lost a bit more time, and was looking to finish fourth, but was third in the end, so not too bad, I guess.
We saw you earlier on in battles with Hoyer and with I.M. Keenan while he was still up there, and of course your teammate Manuel Domingo. How bad was it trying to get through those chicanes in such a close battle with all of that front arrow wash that you would have had to deal with in those instances?
Not too bad. Like, the only frustrating thing is like, it's like doable, too wide, but you lose like so much time with that. So that happened like once or twice. But yeah, no, the car was fine. I was just like slow myself. So that's like, the racing was good, but not very satisfied with my own performance today.
All right, going into next week, the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos. What are you expecting out of another classic track?
It's a pretty good track. I'm not sure if it's like the best for overtaking, but it's just a good track, and there are spots, so I should hopefully see some action. Hopefully it'll be during daylight as well, and then should have a good run.
Anybody you want to thank here before we let you go?
Yeah, I want to thank my teammate Manuel for racing today. I don't know what happened, why he didn't finish, if he couldn't see anymore or something, but him, my other teammates, Radicals Online, and our partners and sponsors. So I think you guys for doing a nice broadcast.
All right, thank you very much. Your third place finisher here tonight, Paul Ilbrink. Congratulations, bud.
Thanks.
User was moved
And
out
with
of your
that,
channel.
then, that brings proceedings to an end from a very dark and murky Imola racetrack. When we'll be back with you next, we will have ourselves the Brazilian Grand Prix, of course, at the wonderful Interlagos circuit, and you want to make sure you check that out. Massive thanks, though, to everyone who gets it done for us here today, and especially to the Blonde Bullet comic book made by Mark Bruning here. A fantastic bit of literature for you to potentially have a little read of. From Frank Marchese behind the cameras, my name's been Jake Sperry, and Lubomir Moritz then is the light in the darkness, some would say today. A race victory, a championship lead, and 2 more rounds to hold on with. Momentum's on his side, and you got to be positive when you're sim racing like that, because next time I'm sure that there'll be drivers who'll be trying to be even more radical. We'll see you next time out then when it comes to Brazil.
Bye.